At 15, I often was left home alone. My mom and dad said at that age it was okay to be at home alone when they went out at night for a mom and dad date night or whatever. Truthfully, I loved being at home by myself. I played Game Boy and popped a frozen pizza in the oven. But I still remember one night perfectly, as if it were yesterday. I was playing with my Game Boy in our basement, where we had an entertainment center and a couple of ragged old couches to relax. It was back in the days when most homes still had landlines for a home phone. My dad had a rule when they went out at night that I had to keep the home phone near just in case they were to call. I had been home alone and downstairs playing in the basement. I don't remember exactly how long I had been there, but maybe for about 2 hours before the phone rang. When I looked at the caller ID on the phone, it showed the number of my friend John. He was my buddy from school. I answered, and we began talking about school stuff, but it wasn't even a minute when I started hearing this weird breathing sound on the phone. "John, is that you, dude? Are you okay, man? Stop that breathing, man. You're really freaking me out." John said it wasn't him, and he could hear it too. It didn't stop, and we both got really spooked. I was shaking and as white as a ghost. John was weirded out and said he'd call back later. After he hung up, I wondered if that breathing sound was coming from one of the other phones in our house. We had a phone on all 3 floors. This thought really frightened me and gave me shivers. If it was coming from one of the other phones in the house, that meant someone else was in the house. I was super scared, but decided to check the other phones anyway. One in the kitchen on the main floor, and one in my parents' bedroom upstairs. I went up to the kitchen, and it looked fine. No one was there. I was so paranoid at this moment because that meant the stranger had to be in my parents' room upstairs. It took all my courage to go upstairs alone. And what I saw put me into trembles. I was utterly speechless with fear, as an old man was standing with his back to the bedroom door, holding the phone receiver in one hand, just looking at the bed. I panicked and instinctively turned and ran down the stairs and out the kitchen door and ran straight to our neighbor's house, pounding on the door and screaming. I told them some strange guy was in our house, and he, without hesitation, called the police and my dad. The police came and searched the house and found the man hiding in a closet upstairs. All I know for sure is the guy was arrested. To this day, I know nothing else about this man. This story still creeps me out. I knew I was going to be killed, so I didn't even breathe. As a young kid, I almost was murdered. Here's the story of how it happened. It is the scariest night of my life. There were 5 of us in my family, so many things were happening. I was 12 at the time, my brother Hank, who was older, was 15, and my little sister Sally was 6. It happened on a Saturday night. My brother was out riding his bicycle with a friend when he was struck by a car. The driver called my mom and said he had called the police, and an ambulance took Hank to the hospital. I was watching Raiders of the Lost Ark on Netflix when I heard my mom freaking out. She was crying and yelling at my dad to get the car. I got terrified when I heard the commotion and ran to the kitchen to ask my mom what was wrong. She was already on the phone with the hospital, who called to inform my parents that my brother was hit by a car and had a broken leg, but I didn't get much else that was said to her. Dad already had the car in the driveway, and Mom got my little sister from the bedroom where she was playing and asked me if I'd be alright staying at home alone. I said no problem, and they all rushed out and took off for the hospital. I certainly was apprehensive about my big brother, but I was happy I didn't have to go hang out at the hospital or see him in pain. I know my mom didn't want me or my sister to see our brother in pain either. However, she didn't have many options with my little sister. She couldn't leave her home alone with me, so she had to go with them. It is worth noting that my brother had his legs set and recovered very well from his unfortunate bike accident with the car. That story is why I was home alone on a Saturday night. I went back to watching my movie on Netflix, and then watched some online videos on YouTube. It had already been a couple of hours when I heard the front door open. It was past midnight and I was tired, so I turned my computer off and crawled into bed. I was listening for my parents' voices and hoping to hear my brother's voice as well, but I didn't hear any. Everything was silent. There weren't the usual sounds of them coming into the house that I usually hear when they come home. I had the eerie feeling that something was dreadfully wrong. Even though I was scared, I got out of bed, went to my bedroom door, quietly opened it, and snuck out to peek under the banister that overlooked the living room. The living room was dark with the light off inside, but I could still see by the house light coming from outside on the front porch that there were 3 tall people walking around in our living room with a flashlight. They definitely weren't friends or my family. I instantly froze in fear, too petrified to even breathe. It took me several seconds to get my nerve back to crawl quietly into my bedroom and close the door as silently as possible. In my haste, I wasn't silent enough and knew they had heard the door shut with its loud click. I quickly moved to my closet, opened that door as soundlessly as possible, and shut myself inside. I sat behind a box of old toys and a big bag of winter clothes that had been stuffed into the closet months before. I was mostly covered and certainly not in plain sight. My heart was pounding, and the minutes were forever awaiting the bedroom door to open. Then it did. At that very moment, I knew I was going to be killed. I heard footsteps in my room. If it was one man or 2, I couldn't tell. I listened as the footsteps moved around my bed, and I heard the blankets on my bed being ripped off before everything went silent. I could hear the footsteps moving closer to the closet where I was buried in the clothes. There was a second silence. Then the closet door squeaked open. My heart was bursting in my chest. I just sat holding my breath with my head down in my arms. The door then opened for a really long minute. I didn't move a muscle as I was powerless with fear. For 20 seconds, maybe longer, the door remained open, and only heavy breathing I could hear. Then the door closed, and I heard the man walk away and out of my bedroom. When I got the nerve to look up, I realized how exposed I really was behind the box of toys and bag of clothes. I surely had been noticeable to the man when he looked into the closet. I still stayed in the closet for over an hour until I heard my parents downstairs. My parents said the front door was open when they arrived, and we could see that the house had been ransacked with many of our valuables taken. Apparently, when my mom and little sister left the house in such a rush to get to the hospital, she left the front door unlocked. I was fortunate not to have been killed that night. It was a night that had gone from bad with my brother being hit by a car to worse with robbers breaking into our house. When I think back on that night, I'm curious if the man who opened my closet door saw me hiding. He may have been just a burglar who only was there to rob the house and had no intent to kill a child, or he didn't see me in the dark, and I had by a breath escaped being murdered. She was under the bed. Parents say there's nothing scary hiding in the shadows at bedtime. That's what parents repeatedly say, and they're right. Most of the time. I'm 17 years old, a senior in high school, so I still live at home with my parents. One Saturday afternoon, I was in the driveway shooting hoops by myself. My parents were out doing whatever, I don't know, but they weren't home. As I went for a dunk shot, I saw a face in the window above the garage basketball net. A woman was standing there. When I landed and looked up, she was gone. My mom and sister were both gone, and they were much younger than the woman I thought I had seen. I went to the den above the garage right away to check out what I had seen, but no one was there. I did a quick sweep of the upstairs room, including looking in each closet. I went back downstairs and checked the kitchen, living room, and front hall closet, and no one was there. I then decided to check the basement to ensure no one was in the house. The basement is small, just one room with nowhere to hide. There are 2 closets for clothes storage, and that's about it, not a lot of places for anyone to hide. When I swung open the second closet door, I was pretty worried because this was the last possible place anyone could hide. It was the only uninspected room left in the house. I jumped into the closet in case the woman was inside to grab her. but all I caught was an armful of winter coats. I was so disturbed that now I was questioning my own sanity. But I was sure that I saw an old woman in the window. It isn't something you would just imagine. I went back upstairs to the living room and screamed very loudly, "Whoever is here, get out of this house now!" Our neighbor heard me scream and came in and asked if everything was all right. I told him I had seen an old woman in the den window when I was shooting hoops. We together searched the house again and found no one. We locked all the doors and windows as we went around. The neighbor left and I called my dad and told him the creepy story. They were a little creeped out and asked if anything had been stolen, but everything seemed to be in place as far as I could tell. Now, jumping ahead to that night, I checked all the doors before bed for peace of mind, but I couldn't fall asleep because my mind was still twisted by the thoughts of the woman in the window. As it turned out, my agitation kept me awake enough to hear some sounds near me in bed. I was lying on my side listening. The room wasn't dead silent as the ceiling fan was on, but I could hear some breathing sounds. I turned to my other side, and she was crawling out from beneath my bed. I screamed bloody murder so much louder than earlier. I didn't even know what I was doing, but I tackled her and pinned her to the floor with my hands around her neck, shouting, "Who are you?" My neighbor heard my scream and ran to the front door, banging hard. I grabbed this filthy, skinny woman and literally dragged her down the stairs to open the front door. She was kicking and scratching at me the whole way. She left 2 scars on my back from her fingernails that I still have. When I opened the door, the neighbor restrained the woman with his weight and I called the police. The entire time we were waiting for the police, she was screaming and cussing at my neighbor and threatening us both, saying, "I'll kill you!" The best description of her is a meth head out of control. So scary. The police arrived pretty quickly and took her into custody. They knew who she was and called her by her name. They had multiple encounters with her before this. You'd think I would be completely freaked out after an experience like this, but I was filled with an overwhelming sense of satisfaction. I can't explain, but I felt good. There is one thing that's even scarier than these stories: watching 4 disturbing voicemails. Click here